16 terawatts? 5 could be knocked off the list with our new friend, energy efficiency. The cheapest, fastest, and cleanest way to let coal stay in the ground and out of the air.
Nothing that we recommend in the form of energy efficiency costs money. It all saves money, so that's a rich field to mine. It's like a Saudi Arabia under our cities.
Energy efficiency is a no-brainer, but because it's free to emit CO2, making carbon-based energy artificially cheap, energy efficiency is still routinely ignored. Besides buildings, that's a huge mistake in the industrial world.
In the industrial setting, what happens is lots of industrials are throwing away really, really hot gases that they haven't recaptured as power because they're not in the power business. And at steel mills, you'll see these big flares. One plant over in northern Indiana takes that heat and makes 95 megawatts of power. And that's one mill in northern Indiana. And the amazing thing, if you stand on top of this mill, is you look around the rest of northern Indiana, you can see flares. Just look around and say, oh, you can do another one there, you can do another one there.
This electricity made from wasted heat is 1/3 the cost of the steel mill's regular electricity. And if we made use of all waste-to-energy opportunities, world CO2 emissions would be reduced by 12%, maybe more.
I don't know of any bigger opportunity to make more money reducing more CO2 than this one. So if you don't give a damn about the environment, do it because you're a greedy bastard, and you just want cheap power.
Cheap power for most means less power needed. Refrigerators, under the Energy Star program, are now 1/2 the price and use 1/4 the energy as their 1975 models. The real trick today is how we get rid of the old ones.
This is very typical of the average fridge we pick up. Utility companies have hired us to go out to customers' homes, pick these things up, verify that they work, bring them in here, and recycle over 95% of the materials that went into making them. Refrigerators are really bad environmental time bombs. CFC 12, which is in the cooling circuit, that's what people typically call Freon, is 10,720 times greater a global warmer than CO2. We suck out the oil and the refrigerant, and we do that simultaneously. Then you take the polyurethane foam, which is in the insulation. In this refrigerator, you have 2.5 tons of CO2 equivalent just in the insulation. We did all this wonderful milling and heating and all that. What we wind up with is Freon R11 or CFC 11. That is doomed for destruction, and that's what we do with it. When I was 20 years old, I started producing rock and roll concerts. I did everybody from Elvis to Sinatra and 2 tours with the Rolling Stones. Everybody goes, well, how did you go from rock and roll to refrigerators? And I said it was quite easy. It involved a jetty. Right after I did Rodney Dangerfield's U.S. tour, I went surfing after a hurricane and I hit a jetty and I actually died. I drowned. And they brought me back to life, and I decided that I better do something different. As I'm out there going underwater and I'm going somewhere else, I said, leave me on Earth and I'll do something good for the world. And you know what? It was a life-changing event. Okay, these are grease monkeys, it looks like. Hi, Wade.
How's it going?
Good. Every refrigerator we pick up in this program is like taking 2 cars off the road for an entire year. 10 tons of CO2 equivalent. My father was an inventor. In fact, he invented the styrofoam ice chest, and some of his cohorts were actually the people that were responsible for polyurethane foam being used. So my father was responsible for putting those things out there, and I got to go clean up their mess.
The mess we're giving our kids to clean up strains the imagination. In the states along the Rocky Mountains, later and warmer winters are having a devastating effect. Hundreds of millions of pine trees have been killed by the tiny pine beetle. Once held in check by the now disappearing winter cold snaps, the beetles have much more time to ravage. In Helena, Montana, the killed-off forest surrounds the town. And unfortunately, the cost of clearing the timber, which they have to do, and then milling it, is more than the beetle-munched wood is worth. In the western U.S., over 24 million acres of pine trees are dead. And since trees help cool the air, it's looking like their loss could heat up the interior West even more, which could really hurt the water supply, agriculture, and tourism of an already stressed-out area. Right now, tomorrow too, Earth is on the receiving end of 86,000 terawatts of solar power. Solar panels and towers aren't cheap, yet. But sunlight is free for the taking.
The excitement in solar right now are the forests of mirrors in the desert that collect solar energy, boil water, spin turbines. In that sense, it's a very traditional electric generating technology using the heat of the sun instead of the heat of burning fossil fuels.
A drawback to big solar in the desert is having to string up city-bound transmission lines through protected lands and national forests. Popping photovoltaic systems on the rooftops sidesteps this snake pit.
What is so great about this rooftop project here is that the electricity goes right to the grid. This will create energy for 165,000 homes. And what I like about it, to put this rooftop on, created jobs. It proves that you can protect the environment and protect the economy at the same time.
Because of these giant projects, coupled with local and federal tax breaks, the cost of solar is going down for homeowners as well. And for the communities where solar is still too expensive, Van Jones has dedicated his life to helping folks afford the panels by focusing on the people installing the panels.
That's Richmond right there. Tough, scrappy. You keep barking, that's good. I was driving back from Marin County, and again, I've been like at a spirituality retreat, it's like not something that my community and people I was dealing with was really interested in. And I was driving back over the bridge, and I'm thinking, I'm going back to Oakland, I'm going back to pollution, cancer clusters, and I just had this thing in my mind, and I just said, we need green jobs, not jails. Those 4 words, 4 syllables, have just totally turned my life around, because, that's what I'm about. Grid Alternatives is like the Habitat for Humanity of the solar industry. They are trying to get solar panels up in, low-income communities, people who need them.
We do the installation for free, and then the homeowners finance a portion of the equipment cost with a low-interest loan that they get from the city.
I want to make sure the wind don't blow my money off the roof.
So we won't put it in unless from day one they're going to have savings.
If it doesn't make dollars, it doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Grid Alternatives, they're making sure that the low-income people who need the solar panels can get the solar panels, and then Solar Richmond makes sure that disadvantaged people get trained to do the work. So it's a 2-for-1. So how long have you been a part of this program?
This will be my 10th week.
10th week? Is it good?
It's the best thing that ever happened to me.
Oh, really? Why you say that?
Because, it's a lot of stuff that's going around.
That's negative?
Yeah, negative stuff.
A lot of times, these guys, they're on probation, they're on parole. The probation officer just, assumes the worst about them. And then when they see them blossoming and doing something positive, even they were getting choked up.
This is more of a way you to branch out, get ahead, get a job, provide for your family.
See, a lot of times when people look at urban communities, what they see is deficits. They see what's not there. And when I look, all I see is assets. I see, entrepreneurs, visionaries, geniuses, hustlers, and that's what we need right now, some visionary, genius hustlers.
And now I can be the owner of my own company in 4 or 5 years, 6 years. Just by starting at the bottom. You got to start somewhere to build up to the top.
So if you want to have a green economy, it's got to be about reclaiming stuff. It's also going to be about reclaiming people, reclaiming neighborhoods. That's the green economy.
Usually when I was working, I never thought about my son and about the future. Now I can think about the future of my son when I'm working, so I'm working for a cause now.
Like Darrell, Van also had a little motivation. Besides meeting the younger Jones, we met the man who showed Van what working for a cause was all about.
As my father would say, are you reaching back? Are you helping somebody? Are you throwing a rope back down? My dad had an impossible task of, trying to fix a school. Now, they gave him 5 years. He did it in 1 year.
I was a principal. They gave me Jackson Junior course, which was supposed to have been
the worst of the worst.
Worst of the worst, and we turned it around where it was the best of the best.
You hear my father's story. It's just so hopeful. That's how I feel about the country. That's how I feel about this whole planetary crisis. I know the ending. I already know the ending. And it's so amazing to think how discouraged people are and they don't believe you can do something. Mm-hmm. And then you show some leadership and have some hope and you bring out the best in people. I don't have the answers, but I know people do have the answers. Nobody's told them you can do it. Nobody's asked them, you solve it. And that's how you lead. That's how I lead. It's the people that nobody's heard from that are going to solve the problem.
I just think, come back maybe in a few years, and you'll be able to see solar panels all over.
Now the power's going to be going out, and the money's going to be staying in the house. That's what this is all about.
Mother! We helping with the environment now. We got the right kind of light bulbs, and now we got solar paneling on the roof to reduce the energy bill. Yeah. We making energy. We sending energy to the energy company now. We saving money right now. Who gonna get my shit? I'll let you know. Come look at that at the meter.
Clockwise is this way, right? That's when you're using up power. This is going counterclockwise, so it means we're feeding power into PG&E.
This is the future. It's a place for ordinary people to earn some money, and for low-income people to save some money. That's going to be the green economy to save the world.
All of these clean energies and energy efficiencies cut down carbon emissions in huge numbers. Together, they combat 4/5 of man-made CO2. The other fifth of carbon emissions comes from the burning down of rainforests. That's right. 1/5 of all human CO2 emissions are from deforestation. To clear land for farming, cattle grazing, and expanding cities. And whether the carbon is from a coal plant in Indiana or a raised rainforest in Indonesia, it heats the planet exactly the same. Every year we destroy enough forests to equal half the size of California, or Oklahoma and Maryland combined, or 8 Vermonts. So protecting rainforests is a big deal on the carbon frontier. But what we learned next was a real kick in the gut. Even if we stopped all carbon emissions today, the Earth will still continue to heat up because we've put too much CO2 up there already. If you could split the atmosphere into 1 million equal parts, you would see that very few parts would be made of carbon dioxide. That's why scientists measure these tiny yet powerful amounts of CO2 in parts per million.
The safe level of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is around 350 parts per million. We are currently at 387.
And that means that we really have to get down to zero emissions during this century. And we have to be well on the way by the middle of the century.
And secondly, we've got to suck some stuff out that we already put up there, and we've got to get on that path sooner rather than later, or we will pass this point of no return, this tipping point beyond which we can't actually fix the problem. Things will spiral out of control.
If we haven't already passed the tipping point, most